Well, hello everybody. I haven't uploaded in a while because it's been overtime at my work the past week, so I haven't had really much time to do anything. Been working on a new painting. I'm working on a portrait of Jim Morrison. I'm still working on what I think the title should be, but needless to say, it's fucking popping. So far, it's been looking really good. It's really interesting for me because I only started actually painting about a year ago. I think a little over a year or so. And before that, I've done 3 paintings in my life. One was a present I did for my mom when I was about 5. The second one was a Bob Ross style painting when I was about 15. And I think it was only 2 paintings before this that there was one of a mushroom I tried doing, but I never finished it just because it looked like shit. But so far it's been interesting to go from not really being able to know how to paint to all of a sudden being able to do realism. This thing of Jim is pretty poppin', I would say. It looks better than I anticipated, although I will say since it isn't a color photograph, it's a lot easier for me to work in black and white because that's what I'm used to drawing with. I'm used to graphite and kind of getting tones and doing the shading from black and white instead of having to do color. But so far it's looking pretty good. I've also been listening to several books that are just been blowing my mind as well as melting it. I listened to Jean Baudrillard's Consumerism last week, and fuck is that book great. I highly recommend it. He goes through basically why we consume things, what it means to us, the different products that we buy, advertising, how it works on us. I would say check it out. Very interesting analysis of why we do what we do, and the social economics, I guess, would be the right term, of how it affects us overall. Also, just started listening to Das Kapital, which is a 31-hour book, so that's going to take me a while to go through, as well as Wealth of Nations. Started last week, about 5 hours into that. Very interesting. Both old. I know people really love Marx and Adam Smith, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of these terms and ideas were interesting at the time, but very outdated now. But I still have yet to finish them, so that's when I'll get my critique and my overall view of it. I've also started listening to, today, I started Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, which I find intense intellectually. It's very hard to grasp some of his concepts. I think if I spoke German and read it in the original German, it would be a lot easier for me to comprehend. But that being said, I'm interested in his weird way of, logic. His logic is very interesting. I'm only about 3 hours into that, so it's a 14-hour, 15-hour book, so I'll let you guys know how that goes. I will say, when it comes to trying to understand someone out of between Kant and Hegel, I would say I'd rather listen to Kant because at least it's a little bit more coherent, but maybe that has to do with the translator, not necessarily the content being translated. But even then, I don't even like Kant. It's a Kant. dialectic is very interesting. I like the way he breaks down his subjects and how he predicates things. Said wave to the person that I let it pass through. I don't know. It's. I'm gonna have to digest it. I'm gonna have to think about a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I have questions about. I wish I could talk to Hegel. I wish I could talk to someone that's a Hegelian. I'm interested in his way of thinking. He talks about science a lot, but I don't understand what he means by science. Is he talking about the method of science to obtain knowledge? Is he talking about the cumulative knowledge that we have from scientific inquiry? Still don't really know. I have a lot of questions. Hopefully all that shit will be settled by the time I'm listening to the book, and done listening to the book, and then from that on to Hegel's Logic. I'm gonna have to, because I listened to it like I think a year ago or so, and that was before I really got into philosophy and logic per se. So I'm going to have to re-listen to it so that way I can actually understand it. It's heavy shit. I can feel my brain wrinkling when I listen to it, but I think he has a lot to offer, a lot for me to mull over. And as regards to all this philosophy and all this thinking and all this supposed seeking of truth, as it relates to art, I believe that the greatest artists were philosophers, whether they were trying to or not. They were also, I believe the greatest artists were part philosopher, part mathematician, part engineer, part I would have to say anatomist, because like look at Da Vinci, a lot of his stuff he worked with fucking dead bodies, and if I remember correctly, to study anatomy, study how things work. Same thing with Alex Gregg. He worked in a morgue for a while just to be able to understand how the body works, and so how to be able to paint it, and wanted to experience it viscerally. And some people might think it's a little bit morbid or macabre, but I think that is, to engage with morbidity is what it is to really be human. Because if you try to shy away from all the things that you don't like, you're never going to grow, and you're never going to understand the other side. You're never going to understand anything that you do not have contact with, is what we call experience. If you do not have experience with the thing, you cannot understand it as it is in itself, which is another thing that Hegel was talking about, the thing in itself. Kind of a mind-bending concept for me, and I'm still trying to digest what he meant by that. But unless you can engage with the darkest side of our humanity and come out untainted, you will never be able to conquer your darkest side, which is the whole point of shadow work and all that Jungian psychology, is to understand that we have a shadow and we have the potentiality for the most morbid things. Everyone has those potentialities, and they may be repressed and they may be on the surface. For me, they've always been very much on the surface of my forethought. So like, as someone that has had big traffic jam, depression and dark thoughts and things like that, I'm a lot more at peace with working through it and understanding that is not me, it is, or not what I will choose to do, because I've chosen before not to do those things. Whereas many people that are untested, that have had very easy lives, might not necessarily, they might break under pressure because they don't have that experience and testing of, testing of resisting the temptation towards darkness. And I don't say darkness as in, like, I use it as a metaphor. I do not believe that there truly is a good or evil. Everything that you can ever do, that every act that you can do that is good, will also have an equal amount of quote-unquote evil side effects according to the subject that they are done upon. And every evil thing that you do to someone will also be also somewhat good for another person. So, or another entity. Doesn't necessarily have, we are very personagistic, I don't know, is that the right word? Because, like, we are very human-centric in our thinking. We don't think of good and evil as affecting the whole of life. But beyond that, okay, back to darkness. If you're not tested to resist the darkness, when great darkness comes, you will not be able to resist it. That is the whole point of tests. That's the whole point of trials and putting oneself through ordeals, or being put through ordeals by the gods or the forces of nature and myth. Because when one goes through small ordeals, you test the limits of where you can go and how far you can do, and you realize that you can break the limits of what you thought you could or couldn't do. And it prepares you for the next one, which will be even stronger. And which, like, down the line, if you keep on going through these tests or ordeals, things that put you in hard decision of what decision to make. You can't make decisions without having experience before. That's what wisdom is. You gain wisdom through experience. You cannot automatically have wisdom without going through hard experiences. Because through wisdom, or through experience, you give a choice. Do you want this, or do you want this effect or this effect? Which do you choose? And depending on what you choose, the consequences come after that. And when you make one choice and you see the consequences of that, you're like, this is something that I should repeat or I shouldn't repeat. You can learn from the wisdom of others by seeing how their lives played out, but that doesn't mean that it'll play out that way for you or every time. And that is another part of wisdom, is to be able to differentiate between, is this instant like the other instant? Like, if I make the same decision, will it have the same effect? Most likely it won't. So you have to couple intuition with wisdom to have the the most profitable outcome for you, the most beneficial outcome for you, because you cannot make any decision that will be inherently good or evil, because it might be good for you and it might be evil for someone else. It might be good for someone else, but it might be evil for you. Like self-sacrificing is good for the others, but it's evil to oneself, because you are destroying the self for others. So self-sacrifice, even though it's praised because of the whole martyr mentality of Christianity, which is imposed on our Western system, we've been brought up to say that self-sacrifice is the best thing. No, fuck no. It is never the smartest thing. Because, yeah, it might help someone later on. You might sacrifice yourself for some child that's drowning in the river. You save the kid, but you drown. The kid grows up to be the next Stalin or Hitler. You might have just saved someone. You might have destroyed your own life to save the life of another, which in turn destroys the life of millions. So there's never... You're going to have to... I'm not saying that you shouldn't save the child, or that you should. I'm saying, in that instant, what you're doing is never good or evil inherently, because you don't know what the effects are. So do it because of the instant of what impulse you feel you should do. You should train yourself beforehand to make choices by the small choices you make beforehand. And what do I mean by this? It sounds a little circular at this point. How you treat others in inconsequential situations to where it's not a big deal, no matter what happens either way. How you treat other people programs yourself for when it will be a big deal. You have to train your body to instinctively react in the way that, according to your own principles, you should. You want that effect. As I say, your own principles, because you should never adhere to the principles of another blindly. Otherwise, you are under the control of a system you do not understand. You can use someone else's framework if you understand it, but if you just wholeheartedly, blindly accept, oh, Jesus is my Savior and all that shit, that's great, but you'll choke on your own misunderstanding of what it is to be a Christian, which is why there is a lot of people that claim to be Christians and then completely throw away the Christian ideal of how to treat others, because instead of actually understanding the Christian framework, they impose their own beliefs of how they should be treated. Sorry, I'm switching lanes, so it's a little hard. They impose their own framework of how they want to be treated instead of do unto others how others do. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. They're like, well, I want someone to treat me this way, and I expect that. Therefore, I'm going to treat them like shit because they treated me like shit. And it's like, oh, that's a complete misunderstanding of what it means or what you're supposed to do according to that Christian framework. But so it's better to just come up with your own principles, stick with them as long as they make sense, make rational sense, because that's the only way you can ever truly have something tangible. Because eventually it might not make sense, and that's when you should change your principles. Once you realize, this doesn't work, this is not how this logically chains together, change yourself after that. Don't keep pushing the same rigid, I don't want to keep on using the word framework, but framework on yourself. It's like trying to force a star-shaped peg through a triangle hole. Because you can get a round peg through a square hole, but you can't get a star-shaped peg through a triangle-shaped hole without some damage. I have no idea what I've been ranting about, but it's been fun. As I say, make your own principles, stick with them, and then when someone points out their irrationality, change it. You don't have to change to what they say, but you should change it at some point. Find out what makes sense. Go with that. But yeah, this has been a very interesting rant. I would say my book recommends for this week, I would say check out some of the Greek tragedies. They are very, very interesting. I love these plays. They're about an hour and a half long if you listen to it on audiobook. If you read it, you could probably read it faster if you're just reading to yourself. I would also recommend check out some ancient history, because it really shows where we came from. And I'm not talking about like some top 10 awesome facts, type bullshit. I'm saying get some scholarly fucking archaeological historical works that back themselves up with evidence, and really take a deep dive into the structure of the society and how things are affected. I would say definitely check out some stuff about ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. It shows kind of the roots of a lot of things that are present today. Read some Greek mythology, because we are not, just because we are modern doesn't mean that we are, or just because we're modern doesn't mean that we are isolated. We are not isolated at all from our previous history, from those that came before. Even like Christianity likes to make itself as though it's something different, something new. It really was not a different religion, and especially if you look at Catholicism versus the cults and the religious framework of Rome, you can easily see how the Madonna is literally just the cult of Isis painted over. You have Hippocrates sitting Hippocrates' child Horus sitting on the Madonna, which is Isis's lap, which is the throne of Isis, which is where all the kings, all the pharaohs of Egypt sat upon the throne of Isis, her lap, which was Horus is supposed to be like the first kind of like framework, or I keep on using that word because it just seems to work. Horus is the archetype of the Egyptian pharaoh that's alive, whereas Osiris was the archetype of the previous pharaoh who was dead. So it's, as far as I understand, I am by no means a scholar in any of this. I am just someone that holds a high interest in knowledge. But I'm going to say peace out for now. Please, if you guys or girls, whatever you call yourself, if you liked the video, if you want to hear more, if you want to start a discussion, please drop a comment, because I would love to fucking talk to someone about this. I have a deep, if you can't tell, love for philosophy, moralism, history, science especially. I know I might come off as a pseudo-spiritualist, but I do think that science is an amazing method for obtaining knowledge. But drop some comments, as well as hit the like button. Definitely subscribe, so that way I can know if, you know, who actually wants to see this shit. I'm gonna keep on doing it regardless, but still, I'd like to see you back here. Check out my website, EzekielSchmidtArt.com. I'm usually putting up new works there every month. Lots of new prints. I still have the same discount code, 15% off for if you put in Mercury into the coupon code. I got a bunch of shirts there. Got a bunch of products that you can help support me, so that way I can stop working for the man, start producing more higher quality rants at this point, some more higher quality videos, and it would definitely help me out to see if see what y'all like. Anyways, I'm going to peace out. I will see you next week. Sorry for the delay of a couple weeks between vlogs. Check out EzekielSchmidtArt.com. Like, subscribe. Also check out Mad Collabs in Spokane if you are Spokane local. Mad Collab Studios off Trent. It's fucking an amazing gallery. That's what my stuff is. As well as other freaking amazing artists. Coffee shop inside. Got tournaments. There's going to be a party there tomorrow. July 23rd, we're having a Meet the Artist party, so I'm going to be there. Nicholas Sidanka is going to be there. Steven Lestat. Can't remember some of the names of the other artists, but it's going to be fun. Anyways, see y'all later.